Welcome to Funnel This, the podcast where fintech marketers and founders learn what really works when it comes to brand building and driving demand.
It's hosted by me, Sally Baker. I'm the founder of fintech marketing agency Wondrous.
Follow the podcast on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Just search Funnel This. So I've got to admit to having a few nerves about today's episode because Jeremy Laight, who's joining me, Fractional CMO, to give his views on why he thinks the marketing funnel as was perhaps isn't as relevant in today's world. And so that leaves me wondering whether I should actually rename this podcast. But hopefully there's still some relevance to the name, but we'll get into that shortly. Jeremy, before we get started, do give us a brief introduction as to your experience in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invite. So I've worked in marketing my entire career. First half was focused on big business, big corporates like Bupa, Nationwide, NatWest. Second half, more focused on founder-led startup, scale-up companies, including Lend Invest, Ennis Global. I'm working with some SaaS businesses at the moment. Always focused on trying to position marketing as a commercial endeavor, so measuring and delivering growth for companies.
Amazing. And I'm super keen to get into why you think the funnel is, shall we say, dead. But before we do that, I think we should, for completeness, cover off what is that traditional marketing funnel. So what is that framework?
Well, I mean, very simply, it's a model that maps out the buyer journey from awareness, so the first time they become aware of your brand, to purchase. And the funnel's actually a really good metaphor for it because you typically start with lots of people flowing into the top and then a few people flowing out the bottom. It was actually first postulated by a chap called Elias St. Elmo Lewis.
Have you heard of him? Isn't it? Well, I am familiar with the model, but I had forgotten his name.
Okay. And when was the model first postulated? Do you remember that?
1898.
You're right. So, I mean, most people don't know. It's been around for ages. I mean, he was clearly ahead of his time. And there's a lot which I do love about it. But at the same time, that linear model that we've seen in the textbooks repeatedly isn't really the way that it works these days. So there's a lot to love about it, but there's a lot to, I suppose, bear in mind when you look at it as well.
So what led you to question its relevance in today's market?
Well, as a fractional marketer, I'm really focused on creating immediate value for my clients. And one of the ways I do that is I map out the funnel. I try and understand what the conversion looks like from top to bottom. And it's just become really, really hard these days because there's a lot that's not visible. So I suppose that was opened the door a little bit.
Yeah.
And then doing some understanding and research into the journeys that I'm seeing with the clients that I'm running. It's really complicated. It's multi-participatory. It's not linear. A lot of it's not visible. Some bits have been massively sped up. I mean, broadly speaking, people are still moving through a continuum to an endpoint, to a conversion, to a sale, typically. But it's not the way that we think. It's certainly not in the traditional following the AIDA model or the awareness consideration model. I mean, people these days call it kind of achieving mental availability in the awareness stage. So there's a lot of different language, but essentially it's really complicated.
And do you think that that's the same both for shorter sales cycles and, thinking about fintech, where typically there can be a long sales cycle, particularly B2B? Do you think that still lacks relevance in that example?
So it's still relevant. It's a really good conceptual model. It's just you have to be aware that it's a model.
Yeah.
And how it works for your business, whether it's a kind of a long sales cycle or short, is very different to that reality. And the entry points are very different. And I suppose what I do really like about it is it forces us as marketers to think about efficiency and conversion. Because ultimately, whatever that journey looks like, however fast it is, there's always leakages. And that's really where we should be focusing.
Absolutely. So how does the funnel differ, do you think, today? So you've mentioned, obviously, traditionally it was lots of people in at the top and then hopefully you get a few people out at the bottom, but it's sort of not that linear now. So how do you sort of perceive the way people are buying now?
Yeah, so I always like to think that awareness is that first moment that someone becomes aware of your brand. Then consideration, the next stage is where they start to maybe weigh up your brand versus other choices. I was at a really great talk yesterday hosted by Professor Scott Galloway, and he was talking a lot about AI and how even only a few years ago, when people were putting an inquiry into Google, it was very simplistic, and Google would generate a long list, and so the consideration would begin. You'd start to check out different options. These days, if you look at how people are using AI, they're putting in a very detailed set of criteria in their prompt, and AI is giving them the answer almost immediately. So you're moving immediately from awareness to consideration to decision in many cases. So that's speeding it up a lot. I think beyond AI, and it's too easy to say that's changing it, because people are also using lots of social media platforms that maybe they didn't use in the past, like Reddit, for example.
Yeah.
Also, social proof is really important. I mean, people for significant purchases always look for validation from their peer group. So those could be on Google reviews, it could be Trustpilot, it could be wherever the company is getting opinion out there from customers who have used the proposition.
And yes, so people are just sort of jumping in at any point, aren't they? And it's hard, I guess, to have control over where they're going to enter that journey.
Yeah, it is. And I think control is an illusion. I suppose we've never had full control. We've had influence. The control sits with the buyer. They're the one determining how they move through that journey.
And can you share any other examples of how that buyer journey sort of plays out now? So you've mentioned Reddit, social media.
I mean, for a lot of B2B, it's a multi-person process. And how often do I hear of examples of someone in the company seeing a case study, another person completely differently seeing maybe a thought leadership article or a post by an employee on LinkedIn, and they're joining up the dots and having conversations, so that I think it was Gartner said that before they even get to your website, the decisions are already 70% along the way. So a lot of the decisions already been made up. So how we influence that, because a lot of that is invisible to us, is incredibly challenging, and it's different from every single client, prospect, company.
I think like Slack's another great example, isn't it? It's almost like the B2B version of WhatsApp. Can get you straight to consideration. Like, can somebody recommend this person? Obviously, we've got a great fintech marketing Slack community, which really acts as that point to get peer recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. And LinkedIn's so credible because people's professional profile is on display. And if someone puts an opinion out there, it carries a lot of weight. And people take that seriously. So I'm a big believer in companies kind of unleashing their own employees to bring to life what they believe the company is offering.
I mean, as a buyer as well, I have to admit to being very lazy, like all, many of us.
What, really? I don't believe it.
If somebody can take away that like research element, then all the better for me. Just take me straight to I'm ready to buy.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that paradox of choice, isn't it? Because sometimes the more options, the more confusing. Whereas actually, if you've only got a few options, you're a lot more confident in the decision that you're making.
Yeah. So talk to me about blending awareness and consideration. What do you how does that happen? What do you mean by that?
Well, I suppose in the old days, you'd be investing in above the line advertising and hoping that someone might see something somewhere about your brand. And bear in mind the Ehrenberg-Bass model that says only 5% of the market are in the market right at this very moment. So you're building a brand up for the opportunity that's going to come in the future that you can harvest. But for those people in the market today, they're maybe not tuned into, I suppose, those touch points. So again, we go back to AI. A simple search. The CEO said, "Look, we need to find a solution to do this or do that, or this is costing us too much," and immediately it's spitting out a curated answer, which pinpoints maybe one or two options, depending on what you prompt it for, rather than a long list. So you're accelerating that initial part of the funnel. And although people are skeptical about AI, they do trust its output.
Yes.
And it might be enough for the output to actually prompt an approach to a business. Often, I think there's a lot of social proof and other touch points going on. in that place. But that top layer is massively eroded.
Yeah, and
Still has a role to play for those people who are in the market in the future. But people today, it's massively eroded.
just at the weekend, I was trying to find a piece of artwork, done a bit of decorating at home.
Splashing out.
So yeah, and there's a couple of artists that we like, but we wanted to find something similar. I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So straight away, AI. I like these two artists.
Yeah.
This is my price range. Give me a list of other people I can look at, and it just shortcuts that process, doesn't it?
I mean, I was lucky enough to travel to India earlier in the year, and a place that I'd never been to before, excuse me, and I didn't really have anybody in my network that could give me reliable recommendations. So again, went into, Gen AI, Chat GPT in this instance, and it gave me such credible recommendations for hotels and places to stay. I didn't need to do any further research.
No.
It was enough to be confident to book.
So as a marketer, how do you show up in those places?
That is the $6 million question.
Absolutely, it is, isn't it?
I mean, really, people are talking now about answer engine optimization rather than search engine optimization. So how do you become the answer to the question that people are answering? And it's typically not one question, right? It's typically a huge paragraph of detail. So you've got to be featured in the places that resonate with the provision of that answer. So what I'm hearing is you've got to be featured in, you've got to be featured credibly in places like Reddit and social media. Your customer reviews are forming part of the decision making. Your content, authentic content, is never more important. If anyone isn't running their content through an AI checker before posting it, please do that, because the content has to be credible. Otherwise, you're going to be penalized. So in a way, it's really putting much more light on credible content that's answering the questions that people are trying to get answers to. So all of those touch points, and probably more than we even know.
So when you said just about putting your content through a checker to make sure it's credible, what type of things are you talking about? So what type of things make that content credible?
Well, in essence, it's got to be written by a human, or look like it's being written by a human, I guess. So a checker would essentially validate whether it looks like it's written by AI. So it's probably looking for certain keywords, phrases, probably looking for the M dash that we all know and love.
No M dashes.
Certain things like that. Now, I'm not saying don't use AI, because it's a fantastic efficiency
Of course.
tool. Of course, use it, but use the principle of the AI sandwich is what I've heard it called. So it's human, I suppose, initiation. It's then AI kind of interaction, and then at the end, it's a human edit to ensure that what's going out is absolutely unique and written by a human hand.
So it feels to me like customer stories are going to absolutely be more crucial than ever in terms of being able to show up in the right places where they're going to get talked about. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's just how do you amplify those customer stories? And that's why I'm a big believer in NPS. It's got my certification a few years ago. NPS is a really good proxy for trust.
Yeah.
And if your customers really believe in your company and they say they will promote it and they'll recommend it, I suppose the proof in the pudding is whether they'll do that. And I've certainly seen in some kind of forums where maybe a customer, client, prospect is questioning the strategy of a company. And sometimes if another customer pops up and challenges on your behalf, that's a really good demonstration that you're growing a fan base, you're growing advocacy to a level where people are willing to fight for you rather than you having to defend your corner. It's absolutely priceless. And so if you can create a proposition that fuels advocacy, so people recommending in your behalf, word of mouth, but willing to put a review up in a public place, then absolutely that's fighting that corner for you.
I think that leads on nicely to sort of dark social. Well, from the point of view of, you've got to be telling the right stories. You've got to get people to become advocates. And surely that's going to be one part of how do you show up in dark social. So would you say there are any other things that marketers could be thinking about in order to make sure they're getting seen in those forums?
I mean, you've got to be authentic. I suppose by the very nature of dark social, it's hard to show up there credibly as a brand because that's not really a place where you can participate.
No.
But we're probably all members of WhatsApp groups are probably
Yeah.
the best example of how often are we uncertain how to proceed, and we ask a question of that community, a community that we trust. So it's about not leaving anything to chance. So creating, delivering on your promises, creating experiences that people want to share and talk about, and surprise and delight. NPS is a really great measure. Typically, people leave it right to the end of the experience. You can measure it throughout. It's called episodic NPS because, as I say, not everyone will always go through the stages. Whatever the touch point, wherever they leave, even if they get right to the end, you want to create something that's memorable. So I've seen many experiences of, I didn't actually go with them in the end, but they made me feel special. They treated me well, and you want people to advocate on your behalf, in whether it's in dark social or whether it's in some place that's more visible.
Yeah. And do you think there are any sort of differences or any different considerations between B2C and B2B?
Well, invariably in B2B, there's many more people involved in the process. But I think it's an illusion to think that you're dealing with a company. You're still dealing with people at the end of the day, and probably more of them. And in effect, the decision that they're making is often more important. It could be career limiting if they make the wrong decision, right? So actually, it carries more weight. Of course, the way that people are going to enter the funnel is probably going to be slightly different. They're looking for different things. But I'm a great believer in repeatability, and I think often things can be repeated from B2B to B2C. Then maybe not as mutually exclusive as we often want to think. The methodology is the methodology. Outcomes are different. So I think there's a lot of parallels between the two. But just remember that it all comes back to really knowing your customer or your ICP. Who are you really trying to do business with?
And trust, of course, is a big factor, isn't it? What signals would you say have the biggest impact on trust?
Well, trust to me is defined by essentially delivering on your promises to customers. So are you delivering what you said that you were going to deliver? And again, customer reviews, people venting or advocating on social media is a good touch point. A lot of this is quite hard to measure per se. I do often come back to NPS. You can survey your clients and customers, but whether they're going to be fully honest with you is always a challenge. But usually it's going to be indicated in some of those softer touch points. I mean, you should see your complaints. Every company will get complaints as an indicator as to maybe where things aren't working, where trust is falling down. You've got to get your monitoring in place. And I think there's a lot of tools out there like Mention, for example, or Sprout, where you can see where your brand is showing up and whether that sentiment is good or whether it's not so good, and use that as a proxy for trust. But I do think NPS is a good measurement framework to get some consistency as to, are we moving in the right direction? It is commercially correlated. So if you are improving your NPS score, then you should see that reflected in your bottom line as well.
And where do you think influencer marketing fits in? I mean, I guess that works for both B2C and B2B, doesn't it? So B2B is more about industry experts, analysts, those kind of voices. And then B2C, of course, you've got the sort of more traditional influencer model.
Well, it's about how do you make your brand proposition stand out. And certain influencers have, or they carry such weight that they are able to land your message in a way that you can't do so yourself. So it is tapping into that almost third party perspective, but tread carefully, because you've got to have a really good fit between yourself and the influencer. And invariably the influencer still has some freedom as to how they proceed, and their reputation becomes tied to your reputation. A trend I'm seeing now is companies looking at more micro influencers. So maybe not the big ones that are renowned for just pushing brands and products, but maybe the people that are really have higher authority and trust scores, but smaller audiences. But again, it depends on the mission and thinking through what does your customer need to be sure of before they approach you.
Great advice. So I want to move on to, I guess, thinking very practically then for marketers. How do you think that we should be rethinking our approach to campaigns and our marketing efforts?
Okay, gosh, that's an absolutely massive question, isn't it?
Come on, you've got 8 minutes.
So I always use this mantra that, if you're not measuring, you're not marketing. So
Yeah.
I think as long as you are measuring what you're doing, so I'm always a little bit wary of undertaking stuff that you can't possibly validate or evidence is having an impact on the numbers. We're working in a market in a world where budgets are tighter than they've ever been. So if you can't kind of vouch for what you're spending, you're always in a tricky place. So attribution is really important. So a campaign, any sensible marketer is thinking about it strategically, but thinking about also ensuring that it's building a case for further investment in marketing. Marketing is an investment after all. So you should be spending in expectation of a return today or a return tomorrow. So I think fundamentally that hasn't changed. Just the parameters are much tighter than they've ever been. It's a very competitive marketplace. And as mentioned, in many ways it's harder because the traditional advertising route isn't working perhaps in the way that it did before to get on the shopping list every single time and to ensure that your brand is showing up where it needs to.
So for a CMO today, what would you love to see them do if it was one thing in the next quarter to start rethinking this?
Yeah, I think every CMO, everyone in the UK should audit their tracking and attribution capability, even if they're super confident in it, because that stuff is really where you validate your actions, if you like. And I've entered fractional consulting agreements with lots of companies, and I come in and I'm like, wow, you don't really know what you're getting for the money that you're spending. And when times are tough, those are the areas that get cut. So I would just recommend everybody audits their tracking and attribution, ensure that it's working, that you understand it, and ensure that you're tracking those new potential sources. These days, systems like HubSpot, for example, they can tell you whether you're getting leads from ChatGPT. Every marketer, every leader should know that question.
Yeah. And I guess sticking on the auditing point, auditing your proof points. If you were going to come across somebody that was going to talk about your brand today, would you be confident that they'd be saying the right sort of things that are going to get you seen in the right sort of places?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that point we started with, that the funnel dates back to, 2 centuries ago. Things have moved on, and the pace of the world we now live in is crazy. So things are changing fast, so you've got to stay on top of it. And yes, what was once a proof point yesterday might not be so tomorrow, or at least it might not be unique. So you've got to have that constant evaluation mindset to ensure that what you're doing is working. And I also encourage people to ensure that they aren't too reliant on one channel, for example, because if that channel were to fall away, that's going to cause an issue. So inject breadth and depth into your marketing approach. That's also a really good key to success.
And how do you see things continuing to evolve over the next few years? It feels like things are moving at pace at the moment, doesn't it? So
yeah, I think it's a really exciting place to be. I think what we're seeing is the rise of the generalist marketer. So a move away from specialisms, but the generalist marketer has got to have a really good knowledge and understanding of so much more than they did before. The market's changed completely, the pace has changed, but to succeed, businesses need great marketing and great marketers more than ever before. I know there's a lot of scrutiny on size of teams and size of budgets, but businesses that want to grow and succeed need to have a really great marketing capability that's commercially focused, that's willing to try new stuff, so they're courageous, but also is happy to roll their sleeves up and do what's required.
Yeah, it very much feels like you've got to be able to think and do, doesn't it? Particularly if it's a small marketing team, but where you've got somebody that perhaps is very strategic, but doesn't necessarily want to roll their sleeves up, as you've just said. But it feels like you've got to be able to do a mixture of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. That can be a frustration. So I have worked in businesses where people are like, well, actually, I only focus on this. I think those days are gone. We've got to be open-minded, and I can't believe that I'm one of these people now that I can get my Canva out, for example, and do a quick design if I need to. So,
that's the whole other episode.
we're highly adaptable, but the tools are much easier than they've ever been. So there's no excuse. I mean, Gary V says spend an hour a day on AI. I do think that's great. Don't resist it. Get your head around it, and Scott Galloway, I keep name dropping. Yesterday at the presentation, he said he has a second screen, and if he's attempting something on his primary screen, and he doesn't know how to do it, he's asking AI immediately, how can I automate this? How can I repeat this? How can I learn from this on everything? Because he believes in the efficiency kind of power up that's going to give him moving forward. We should all be doing that. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, and I think beyond sort of the world of marketing, I think, as marketers, you hear such a lot about AI, don't you? And it feels almost mainstream, but actually then when you talk to non-marketers and people outside of the workplace, so many people are yet to adopt it, aren't they?
Yeah, and that can be a scary place to be. So as they say, the best place to start was yesterday. So do that.
Oh, yes, I love that. Do you think, I think I know the answer to this, but do you think that we will get a new model, a new framework to replace the old one?
No, I thought you could ask me if do I think the funnel is dead, and Mark Ritson always says as soon as he hears that line, it worries him because nothing really dies. And actually, it's a brilliant theoretical framework. It's just different. Don't be fooled by that very nice, pretty, simplistic diagram in the textbooks. It's really complicated. See it more as a constellation of lots of different funnels, and you need to join the dots together as a marketer. So it's absolutely not dead. It's completely relevant. Just get your head around how it works for your business.
Yeah.
Because again, I think there's nothing worse than thinking, if it works over there, it will work here. It won't. You've got to look at it through your business, your customer's eyes, and I suppose configure it accordingly.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like my podcast name is safe for the time being, but in all seriousness, I think, you should challenge things, shouldn't you? Just because it worked once doesn't mean that it's relevant in the future. So I think it's a good place to be, to always be challenging and thinking, is this still right? Is this still relevant?
Yeah, that's the challenger mindset. We should all have that. We should be inquisitive and naturally skeptical of whatever's put in front of, especially if it was developed 100 years ago. There's so many examples of models that we still use today that predate smartphones, social media, AI. These things are game changers, and they do affect the way that theory works.
And, even in payments itself, of course, how things have changed over the hundreds of years and how they still continue to change. Things just do evolve, don't they?
Massively.
And as you've said, be creative and experiment, I guess, is another key fundamental that everybody should
test, have fun with it. Every campaign, every email, you should be testing something. We're constantly learning. It's an enduring pursuit. You never get there, but it's how you make progress, which is what counts.
Yeah. I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much again for joining me. But I do have to finish on the question that I ask everybody. So if you were going to start a brand new marketing function tomorrow, could you give me 3 founding principles?
I can, and
Amazing.
I will. Okay, so hire the best possible people that you can afford, because that's going to make your life a lot easier. Obsess about the customer. Ultimately, that's really, why we're in the game. And then thirdly, and it does tie this conversation quite well, it's agility. Create a team that's willing to learn, fail fast if necessary, but get stuff done fast, because we're working in a market where velocity is a competitive advantage. So the faster that you can react, the faster that you can learn, that you can adapt, the better for your business and for your marketing team.
Thank you. I love those. And it's still great to hear. I mean, you're not the first person to mention about hiring the right people. So that's going to be, but great, you know, in a world where people are thinking, oh, some of our jobs going to get replaced. It's good to still hear that, you know, we still need really good people and hire the best people. And as has been said before, hire people that are passionate as well.
Yeah, attitude is massively important. So yeah, don't discount that.
Thank you. So apart from LinkedIn, and your details will be in the show notes, it feels like there could be a lot of marketers out there that have got questions for you, Jeremy. I know that you've just created or recently created a community for fractional CMOs. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. So more and more people are considering or working in a fractional way. So that means that they are slicing their time up and working for multiple companies at the same time. Creating a portfolio career in the process. It's new for a lot of people, and the challenge is that a lot of fractionals can feel isolated, but also are facing challenges for the first time, because essentially you're setting yourself up as a new business, as a new entity. So yes, the group is on LinkedIn. It's called The Slice. We've got over 350 people already. We've got our first face-to-face event coming, and so if people are considering fractional way of working, please join. It's free, and you'll be part of a great network that's focused on connection, collaboration, and supporting each other.
Amazing. And I will make sure those details are also in the show notes for people to find the community.
Brilliant. Thank you. Appreciate it, Sally.
Thanks for listening to Funnel This. Follow the podcast so you never miss an episode, and if you enjoyed it, do share with someone else who might find it useful too. See you next time.